Hey, what's up, YouTube? In this live stream, we're basically going to be recreating sort of this effect right here. So whenever we scroll, each line is sort of being highlighted one by one, and there's a slight stagger between it. And I linked the original site down there. I've actually already recreated this as a clonable. So if you'd like to just go ahead and clone that, feel free to jump right in. But basically, I'll just be taking you through my process of how I thought about this, how I recreated it, and some different libraries I used. So let's go ahead and get started. So I have our basic setup here in Webflow. It's literally just an H1 with this class of split lines. And one thing that's interesting whenever we're talking about splitting up lines of text is that whenever the text starts to wrap at smaller screen sizes, we have to recalculate all those lines. We have to figure out, all right, which words are on which lines now and reapply all that splitting. So that can be a little tricky to do. And for a while, I couldn't really find a good library that would do this for free. GSAP has a great text splitting library, but it's a paid plugin you have to use. But I just found this one today, Split Type, and I'm really excited about it. It seems to be working pretty well, and it's in the clonable if you'd like to check it out. But basically, we can use the CDN to just import the library. So we'll just copy that script and then head over to our Webflow project. I'm putting all my code in the page settings. I'll be pasting this up top. Thanks so much, Thomas. I'm really glad this is helpful. So we need to import our library before we basically use it, before we apply those settings. So I'm going to do that there. And then because this is going to be sort of a while scrolling animation, we'll also be using a little bit of GSAP to create the animation. So again, we're using this library called Split Type. Link is in the description to split the lines, split the text up into lines. And then we'll be using GSAP to actually animate those lines of text. So I'm going to copy the scroll trigger tag and also the GSAP library itself, and those will need to go. All this is in the clonable. Thanks, Cam. Let's see. It doesn't really matter if it's above or below the split text library. So I'll just paste that there and save it. And let's see if we can get this to split up. So see if it will automatically calculate those for us. So if we go back to our documentation, scroll down a little bit, it looks like basically we can target by an ID, and it can be words, characters, and I'm assuming lines right here. So let's just copy this and let's paste it into our script. And basically, I think I have an ID on this headline. No, I don't. Let me go ahead and give it, what ID is it looking for? An ID of target. So let's publish that. And just like we're passing in words and characters, we can pass in lines. Is it line or lines? It is, let's try lines. And we are going to delete characters. We don't really need to split it by characters. And let's see that published. Let's refresh. And all right, let's inspect. So if we inspect here, no console errors so far. That's a good sign. And if we head back over to our Elements tab, we have, it looks like all these lines. Yeah, so all these divs, individual lines, that is perfect. That's looking great. And then this goes back to the issue that I talked about earlier. If we decide to wrap this, maybe on mobile, the text starts to stack. What we'll notice is now these lines aren't actually broken up correctly. So like some words that were on one line before now span into two. And now this is kind of like breaking our wrapping. So anytime the user resizes their sort of browser window and the text starts to wrap, we need to remove all these individual lines and then re-break them up again and basically just keep that going. So let's start with, first of all, seeing if we can basically split this up anytime the user resizes their window. So we've already split it. Looks like we can choose if we want a certain class for our words or our characters or anything like that. And there is an option called revert that should turn everything back to normal. It should just destroy it. So we've already saved this instance of a split in this variable called text. So we can basically do text dot revert. And for now, just to test this out and see if it works, I will do that on click of the body. So let's just paste this in here and we'll target the body. We're going to say on click, we are going to revert. On page load, it splits our text up. On click of the body, it should remove the breaks. So let's inspect again and let's head over here. So on page load, we see all our lines are here. Everything's split up. And if I click anywhere on the body, now my H1 is just plain text again. It reverted it. So that's perfect because we can basically do that anytime the user resizes their window. And I think I used this window resize code in the recent Wizardry accessibility update. Basically, it would be this add event listener resize. This will just run some code anytime we resize the browser window. So in this case, anytime we resize that browser window, we're just going to be reverting the text, and then we need to create it again. We basically want to run this whole line of code again. Why not write script directly in Webflow? Just because I would have to publish Webflow every time I want to see that change live on the site. So using Code Sandbox is a little faster. Let's see. So we want to run this code again after we clean up the text. So to do that, we'll have to create a function. And I think I can call this function, let's say we'll call it run split. So it's just run split. And basically that's going to do this. Basically just going to split up the text. Now, whenever we save this variable of text inside a function, we can't use it outside of that function anymore. That's why this is highlighted red. So we actually need to create the variable of text outside of the function and then just update what it's equal to inside of that function. And now we should be able to refer to text outside of it. So we basically want to run this function on page load, and we want to run it again after we revert the text whenever we resize the window. So what we should notice, let me publish, refresh. All right, so this does not appear to be running on page load. Did I save this? Yes, I did. We are running, I'm getting an error up here, text. Let me just create this as a let variable because, we're going to be redefining it. That's the error. Constants can't be changed. And when we declare a variable with let, we can change it again. So now if we open this up, open up our page wrapper, let's open up our main wrapper, our section, our container, and our headline wrap. And all right, so all these are split up, right? We have each line is essentially there. And as soon as we resize the window, it cleans it all up and then splits it up again. So now all these, even though the text is wrapped, are still on their own lines, and that just keeps everything nice and concise for us. So far what we've done is target an ID of target, but what if we had multiple of these instances on the page and we want to target a class? What we could do is basically maybe call this something like, we'll call it current element, and we'll set it equal to the class. So we just want to target that class with jQuery. Then what we want to do here, instead of targeting an ID, is we want to target that class. And if we save that and refresh, let's see, will it split our text? If we open this up and open up our heading. So yeah, this is all still being split, but if we open up the second one here, these are split too. So it's working just fine with the class. It looks like they accounted for that, which is great. So this is splitting all of our text, and then on resize, we're running that again. The next thing I think we're going to want to do is basically add sort of like a line inside of each one of these sort of divs right here. So if we look back at our live site here, we'll see this is sort of being animated. And if we inspect, let's see how they're doing it. So the background is kind of pure black. And let me turn this off for a second. All right, let's right click and inspect on this. It's essentially just a span that they're just moving over. And that span, it looks like it just has a black background color and 65% opacity. So it's just on top of the text and it's overlapping it. So if you imagine just sort of a div here that's black and it has the opacity turned down to that 65%, and we're just moving it out the way, essentially, is what we want to do. And that's what we're going to do in our example too. But first is we need a way to get that div sort of inside of those lines of text. So we have all these divs with the class of line. They're holding all our words. We need to sort of get a div inside of these. And the way we're going to do that is with jQuery append. So if we just look up that real quick. So here we can basically just append anything, basically just make something where there wasn't something inside of this div before. And that's what we were going to want to do. So what we'll be doing is inside of our class of, I believe it was line. That's the class it gives. We basically want to add a div inside of that. And we'll give that div a class here. And maybe, let's see, we'll need single quotes because our outers are double quotes. Let's give that a class of line mask. So it's just masking that. And let's see if we save that and refresh what happens here. So we have a line mask there. It looks like it put that line mask inside of every one of our lines. So that is perfect. So then from there, we just need to style this line mask class. So what I'll do is head over to my CSS. First thing I'm going to do is grab my line class, and I'll go ahead and set its position, position to relative. And then I can style the line mask div inside of it. And we'll make it position right here. Can't spell tonight. Position absolute. Absolute. Perfect. And let's go ahead and anchor it to the top, 0 pixels from the top, and to the right, 0 pixels from the right. Let's give it a background color, background-color of black for now. We'll give it an opacity of that 65% we talked about. And let's give it a width for now of 50%. And let's save that and refresh. And let's see, is this being styled? Oh, we might need to give it a z-index too. Let's see if we give it a z-index of 2. And make sure it's on top of our text. It's there, it's just not, oh, we may need to give it a height. Height, 100%. Save, try again. There we go. So there it is. It's covering our text. It is 50% of the width of the parent. And I think by default, we're going to make it be 100% width. So like so. So it's completely covering there. And then whenever we scroll into view, we're basically going to want to animate that. So from here, this is where we can probably use GSAP. So let me pull up some GSAP code here. And let's see, we'll use an animate from right here. And here we go. So basically we're creating our animation on, we're going to loop through each of the lines for now. And our trigger will be whenever one of the lines come into view, or it actually had the class of line. And then the element we want to animate is the child inside. And we gave that child the class of line mask. So for now, we'll say whenever the top of that element reaches the center of the viewport is when our animation starts, and whenever the bottom of that element reaches the center of the viewport, so the bottom of each line, and then we're going to be animating those lines. We want to change their width to 0% width, and we'll be animating to that 0% state. So if we preview this, you'll notice as we scroll, we sort of see that effect happening like so. And if we scroll really fast, it sort of appears on an angle or really slow. And this is working for all our lines of text. So it's basically just taking the width of this overlay from 100% to 0%. And that's working just fine there. The only thing I think we need to account for is if we resize the window currently. Let me see if I do this. So our text is all being, let's see, if we open this up, our text is being wrapped into new lines every time we resize. Let's go under heading wrap, target. So there it is. And inside of each line, we still have the line mask, but our animation isn't happening anymore. And I think we're going to want to run that animation every time we resize the window. We're basically going to want to create that animation. So what we can do is create a function, call it something like run animation, and basically wrap all this code inside that creates our animation. And then we'll want to run this on page load down here after all the text is split up. But we'll also want to run it inside our function here. Actually, we might not need to run this on page load if we're running it up there. So basically the order of things is on page load, we get all of our lines, we split them up, we add in that div inside of them, and then we create an animation. And whenever we resize our window here, it's basically going to clear them out, and then it's going to do all the same steps again. So now if we refresh here, we have a nice animation that's looking great. And even if we were to resize our window, it just recreates the animation for us. So this is working perfectly, even though our lines are sort of breaking and they're different. Oops, there's one little glitch down there. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I mean, that's pretty much it. It's like we're splitting all our text up into different lines, and then we're creating that animation, and just being able to split those lines of text into different divs is super powerful, because from that we can create all different kinds of line animations, which is something I've been wanting to do for a long time now. So if you want to, feel free to check out the clonable. It's all in there, and feel free to check out the library. All those links are in the description. Thanks so much.